Hello, welcome to episode 221 of the Craft House Magic podcast. My name's Ellie and I'm coming to you from Norwich in Norfolk in the UK, and today is the 25th of August. So welcome everybody. I hope you've all had a lovely crafting week since the last time I've spoken to you, and I'm here to share all the things that I've been making in the last 7 days. So today we have some knitting, some crochet, some sewing. I have a gadget to show you. I have a question from the Ask Me Anything thread on the Ravelry group, and some information on my shop update, which is this Friday at 7 PM GMT. Now I've got quite a lot of yarn to show you, so if you're interested in opal yarns or my hand-dyed yarns, stay tuned. And I also have Jensen's little appearance at the end of the podcast. So I've got a couple of make-alongs going on in the Ravelry group and on Instagram that are sort of multi-crafty ones. That's Craft 20 a day, which is working on 20 minutes or so a day on those projects, so chipping away at those bigger projects. We've got the Craft House Magic Summer Sock Along 2022 going on as well. That's till the end of the month, and it can be any sock that you're making, it can be any craft. If you're making a sock out of an obscure craft, I'd love to see how you're doing it. You can either use the Ravelry group or use the hashtag CHM Summer Sock Along 2022. So those two are both on Instagram and on Ravelry as well. And we've got a project bag make along, which is using the hashtag CHM Project Bag Sew Along 2022, and that's on Instagram. So if you're making a project bag out of one of my patterns, make sure you put the hashtag CHM Project Bag Sew Along 2022, because I'll be drawing for prizes at the end of this month, and you could be in with a chance of winning one of my bag making kits. And I'll also be drawing prizes for the other two make-alongs as well. For the Summer Sock Along at the end of this month, and then at the Craft 20 a day, it's every quarter. So for the August subscriber giveaway, the winner for this month is Karen, and I've just emailed you to let you know that you're a winner, and just to want to confirm your address. So check your emails if your name's Karen and that you're subscribed to my email list. So if you subscribe to my email list, which is on my website, and you scroll down to the bottom of the page, pop your email in there, and I draw a prize every month, so it's definitely worth subscribing to my newsletter. So don't forget to sign up to my newsletter before next month so that you could be in with a chance of winning next month's prize. So let's get on with the knitting, shall we? I have a finished object to show you, and it is a cowl. So this cowl is knitted by my lovely mother-in-law Liz, and it's out of one of my own hand-dyed colourways. This one is called Take My Breath Away, inspired by the song by Berlin, and this was actually the first dance that me and Adam had at our wedding, so I had to dye this up at some point. So it is a mixture of sort of sunset yarns. We've got oranges, purples and yellows and reds in there, which I think is a lovely mixture, and this is what it looks like knitted up. There is a long edge at the front, and there is a shorter edge at the back with a point that goes down the back of the neck, which I think is a nice little feature. And this pattern is called the Ginger Ale Cowl by Joanna Herriot, and I'll leave a link to her pattern in the description bar down below. So this pattern is actually written for both knitting flat and in the round, but Liz knitted this in the round, so you don't have to sew it up afterwards. I love the beautiful eyelet texture on this one, and it's a nice simple sort of design, and I think that this is going to be one that I wear quite a lot, so I'll show you what it looks like when it's on. So I give this a block in some Eucalan wool wash, and it's really nice and drapey now, and I think that this shape looks really nice on. It's one of those sort of staple designs that you can wear loads and loads and loads. So I really like how that looks on. Also, the pattern says about doing a tassel for the front here, but I'm not quite sure whether I want to do that or not, because I don't know if it would annoy me in this position here. I might make up the tassel and just see what it looks like, and then I can always just not sew it on. But I really like the shape of that. It's lovely if you've got a coat on as well, so a lovely quick design. So this actually used under 100 grams of yarn. I had 23 grams of the yarn left over, so plenty to make a tassel if I wanted to, but it's nice to know that you're not sort of playing yarn chicken at the end of a cowl. I will take it off because it's still a bit warm here in the UK. But that is a lovely, really lovely pattern that I definitely recommend. So I will leave a link to both the yarn and the pattern in the description bar down below. So that's the first thing I've got to show you, which is a finished object, and I have some works in progress to show you, or at least one new work in progress. And this is my shift cowl. So this is a cowl made from my hand spun and dyed yarn. So this, I've actually had this in mind for ages, and I got two yarns that I definitely wanted to use for this cowl for ages, which I've already started knitting with these two for the beginning of the cowl. And then I found this one in my stash, which is actually slightly thicker, but I thought, I think I should be able to get away with it. It's more like a DK weight yarn rather than the sport weight that these other two are. So I have spun these myself. I know that I got this one from You and Ply in Shrewsbury, the fibre, and I know that I actually got some 100% alpaca from a friend of mine, which I've spun and dyed as well to make those go together. And then I have this one, which I can't remember where I got the fibre from because I didn't label my spun yarn, which is really bad. But I thought those colours would go together really nicely. I'm a bit worried that I might not have enough of this third colour to finish the cowl, but I can always spin some more up in a slightly different colour. Because it's all sort of hand spun, I think I can get away with changing the third colour and mixing it up a bit if I do run out. But those are the three yarns that I've been starting to use, and I've hand spun those. They're all 2-ply yarns and semi-worsted spun, but again, this is how far I've got so far, and this is actually section 1, I think, and I believe that this is around the back of the neck, and then you work outwards and then finish up at the back. It is worked flat, this one. That is what the front of the work looks like. The lighter turquoise is the alpaca, and it's a little bit fuzzy, which is really lovely. And there's the back of the work as well. Really loving how these two colours go together so far, and I think what I'll do is, if I don't like how the third colour is working in there, I can always switch it out or spin some more yarn to go with it. But I am loving how that texture looks knitted up. So that is my knitting that I've got on my needles, but I have been doing quite a bit of work on some crochet this week. So I have shown you before the Ziggy Interrupted wrap that I've been working on for a little while, and I think last time I showed you I'd worked about that much of the pattern, and I have done another section of squares and a couple more sections of the zigzag bit. These squares seem to take me ages, and to join them together as well. I joined the squares together using a sort of whip stitch technique rather than the crocheted attachment that you can do, because I wanted them to be as flat as possible. I know that if you join them with a double crochet at the back of the work, you end up with a ridge all across the back, and I didn't want that. So that's what the back of the work looks like, and it looks almost as good as the front, I think. And it being a wrap, I wanted it to be, you know, quite similar on the back as to the front. And I'm really pleased with how that's looking. It's really coming along nicely. Love those colours. So this is the Ziggy Interrupted wrap by Sandra Paul from the Cherry Heart podcast. I'll leave a link to her pattern in the description bar down below. It's really nicely written. It's really detailed instructions of what to do, and actually she even tells you what colour you need to do for each of these squares inside and out. But I actually have gone rogue because I chose 4 colours instead of 5, so I wouldn't have been able to follow her instructions exactly. So what I'm doing is just, I've been making some random combinations of these squares, and then I'll just lay them out and then work out which layout I like best. But that's how I've got on so far. And again, that's the back of the work. So that is one section, and there's about 4 or 5 of those to complete, so I'm not quite halfway yet, so it's going to take me a little while. I am quite a slow crocheter, so it's going to be a work in progress for quite a while yet. I think once this is blocked as well, it'll have a nice drape on it, as well as looking really pretty with those lovely shades. So I used 4 different yarns, and they're all from the East Anglia Fibre Festival that I attended earlier this year. And I've got this colour here, which is the Cowls yarn in Love Letter. This one here, which is Snail's Pace by the Woolen Witch. And then these 2 colours are both called Poison by Ducky Darlings, but they're on 2 different bases. This is her normal merino nylon base, and this is merino silk and yak, which makes it a much richer, darker colour. But I think that those 4 colours go together really nicely, especially when they're from 3 different dyers. I'm so glad I was able to sort of incorporate a few different dyers in the same project as well, because sometimes that can be quite difficult. And it was all because I basically had this project in mind before I went to the show. I picked up the Poison colourway, this one by Hayley Ducky Darlings, and then I went around the show, picked these 2, and then I ended up going back to Hayley's stall and picking up the darker version. I'll quickly show you what the yarns look like in the ball, and you can see that they've reduced in size quite a bit already. I believe that Sandra says that you can get away with 4 balls, but you pretty much use them all up, compared to having 5 different colours. And I thought that would be really nice to be able to use most of it up instead of having too much left over, because I've got a lot of leftover yarn. So the next section is the sewing section, and I have 2 garments to show you that I think go together really nicely. So the first one is some trousers, and these are the Tangerine trousers by Sew Over It. And I've made these before, but I haven't made them without the feet in, and I thought it might be nice to do a version without the feet in, so that they can actually last longer. And also I thought I could actually roll these legs up to make them into a shorts, because it is quite warm at the moment, so I think when he tries them on today I'll probably roll them up, because I think they'll be quite long on him, because these are the 9 to 12 months, and when I made the version with the feet in, they come up quite long on him. They've got quite a nice thick waistband, which I did have rolled down before, which I'll probably, when he has them on, I'll roll it down, because it is going to be quite long on his body at the moment. But I noticed when I made the smaller size that when he got a bit bigger, I could unroll the double rolled waistband, which was handy. So you'll be able to see them on Jensen at the end of the podcast. These are made from scraps of leftover fabric. I did actually make the last pair with feet in this same fabric, but I only had a very tiny scraps left, and I could just about get out this pair of trousers, and I could not get the feet out of this fabric anyway. Hence I managed to match most of the stripes up in the middle of the trousers, but the side seams do not match, because I couldn't get matching ones out of the scraps I had left. But that is the trousers that I've made, and I've actually made 2 t-shirts. This is the Elm t-shirt by Sew Over It as well. I have made a version of this before, and again this was the 9 to 12 month version, and it had plenty of room in it, so I made another one, but this is a different fabric. So this fabric, I cannot remember for the life of me where I got it from. If I can find it, I'll pop the link in the description bar down below, and it's got little robots and spaceships in, which I think is really cool. And I just used a red contrast neckband to tie it in with the trousers, because they're sort of grey, and with my scraps I used for the trouser bottoms. I did have 1/2 metre of this space fabric, so I did cut out 2 t-shirts exactly the same straight away, because I thought, actually, the top is always the thing that I need to change on Jensen, because he's normally dribbled down it or got his dinner down it. So if I make 2 the same, then he has a spare one to go with the trousers, rather than not having things that match. So I've made 2 of these. So these tops have poppers down the side or on the shoulders to make sure he's got plenty of room for his head to go in. But the pattern does have a version that means you don't have to have the poppers, it just has an enclosed neckline like a regular adult t-shirt really. But I enjoyed making the ones with the poppers last time, so I've made the same one again, so that there's plenty of room for his head to go over his head. Jensen doesn't like things being really tight over his head, so being able to unpop the seams is really good. And I've just used some plastic press studs here that I use quite regularly to do DPN case closures with, but you can use the little metal poppers as well. But there we go, that's his little outfit that I've made for this week, and I will get Jensen to show them at the end of the podcast what they look like on. So the next section we've got is Gadget. Now I have managed to get hold of some of these for the shop as well. I've just started using mine. So these are little macaroons that are magnets to put your needles on. So I have a needle here just in my sewing room, but it is a magnet so that you can keep your needles safe. You can either use them for darning needles if you are sewing up your knitting, or if you're doing embroidery or hand sewing something. These are a nice way of keeping those needles from sort of rolling off the table. They're so sweet though. And what is interesting is if you put your needle in between the macaroon there, it actually helps sharpen your needle as well, which is good. But they come in two different colours, pink and turquoise. These are ideal for knitters and for embroidery, but I also have a little collection of needle minders that I use for doing cross stitch and things on a frame. So these ones actually have a magnet where you can join them either side of the fabric where you've got your work in a frame, and then keep your needle in there, which is really handy. So these two here are both from Chapelview Crafts. You can get the style where you've got a little tray with like some drinks and things, and this is a little Christmas version with a hot chocolate and a mince pie and Christmas cake. Then I've also got this really cute Battenberg cake as well. Also with a magnet on the back. So these ones are for sort of cross stitch and doing needlework on a frame, but I thought that these would be lovely for knitting as well and doing sort of hand stitching. You can have them I thought I could put them in my little tray that I do my hand stitching in. Not only are they my gadget for this week, but they're also going in the shop update as well. So my next section is the Ask Me Anything section. So you can either leave a message on the Ravelry group on the Ask Me Anything thread about your question, or you can pop a question to my email, which is crafthousemagik@gmail.com. But I have a question from George for this week, and it's a multi-part question. The first part of the question is, what is my favourite dressmaker? Because I've done quite a lot of dressmaking, especially like over the last sort of year rather than relatively recently, because I've had my hands full with Jensen. Now it depends on if it's a dress that I wear the very most. I'd say it was my Zadie dress pattern, because I have 6 of those and I wear those a lot. It's a jersey dress pattern with huge pockets, and I find them so wearable, and it's a brilliant way to wear some really nice gorgeous fabric, but it also be really comfortable as well. I'll pop a little video up here of one of my dresses so you can see what they look like in full length. They're all the short sleeve ones are in the wash today, so I wasn't able to put one on for the podcast, but I do have another 3 long sleeve ones, but it's a bit too warm to wear those at the moment. But I would definitely say that it is my Zadie dress, and the pattern is by Tilly and the Buttons. It is a little bit of a tricky one because you've got some princess seams and some Y seams, so if you're a little bit nervous of Y seams and princess seams, perhaps do some other patterns first. But it is actually relatively doable. You just have to take your time, and once you've actually done one of the dresses, I found it much easier and quicker to make it again, because you obviously know what you're doing. So that is my favourite dress if it's the dress that I wear the very most. But I do have another favourite, and that is the Eve dress by Sew Over It. I absolutely love the flowiness, and it makes me feel really fancy when I wear that dress. I've got 2 of those. I've got a black one with some coral flowers, and I also have a bright blue one with multicoloured flowers on as well. So I think that is one of my very favourite patterns, just because it's quite flattering as well. I love the fact the back of the skirt is a lot longer than the front, and it feels all floaty, and with floaty sleeves as well. There are options to do a straight hem at the bottom and the straight sleeve. I've made my 2 versions with the floaty sleeve and floaty bottom. So next, George asked, could I suggest an easy dress pattern? I would go, if you're sort of a beginner dressmaker, I would go for one of the Tilly and the Buttons patterns, because I think that their instructions, because they're quite often all in colour, and they're just, I think they're the easiest ones that I've read to learn how to dressmake, because they take it back to quite basic instructions as well. So I would suggest one of the Tilly and the Buttons patterns. And maybe if it's something that you want it to be easy to sew, I'd stick with something that isn't too stretchy, maybe. So like a cotton lawn or something. So I'd probably go for the Bettine dress by Tilly and the Buttons, or the Lotta dress, or the Stevie tunic from Tilly and the Buttons. Those three are all for woven fabrics, really, apart from the Lotta actually, which you can also make with jersey fabric according to the pattern instructions. And that leads into the next question that George has left me. What fabric is easy to use besides just cotton? I think anything that isn't too slippy, or it doesn't move a lot when you stretch it in different directions. Some of the viscose very delicate fabrics sort of slip and distort, and when you sort of move the fabric, so that you can end up making mistakes when you're sewing. But anything that doesn't seem too slippy or doesn't distort too much as you're sort of moving it, I think you'll be fine, really. Also, don't worry about challenging yourself a little bit. Just take a little bit of the fabric and just have a bit of a practice on it before you work on your main garment. And I think quite often you'll find that quite a lot of fabrics aren't as hard to sew as you think. And also, if you pick up a certain type of fabric, if you just Google tips on working with that fabric, then quite often you can think, oh, when I use those tips, it's a lot easier. So if you're using a stretch fabric, for instance, if you just choose one that isn't too stretchy, like I'd go for a cotton jersey fabric rather than a viscose jersey. Viscose jerseys are a really pain to sew sometimes if you're really not careful. And with a jersey, if you use the right type of needle, if you use either a ballpoint needle or a stretch needle on those, which is basically they're both ballpoint needles, so it doesn't snag on the fabric. And also, if you just reduce your presser foot tension so that it doesn't stretch out the fabric as you're running it through the machine, I think it can be a lot easier than you think. So have a go with fabrics, pick those fabrics that you really like, and just try to go for ones that are slightly more stable and not too slippy and slidey and easy to distort. And I think you'll find that it's easier than you think to work with a lot of the materials. If you go for a sort of a slightly heavier weight viscose, for instance, I think they can be easier, a lot easier to sew than the very supple distorting one. And George also asked, have I ever done a podcast with a dress that I've sewn start to finish? I haven't, George, not yet. Maybe I should do that sometime in the future. Next time I get a chance to actually sew a dress, maybe I'll record little clips and show you how I progress in making a dress, in the whole process from start to finish, cutting out the pattern, cutting out the fabric, starting to join the pieces. Would that be something you guys are interested in? So I hope that answers your question, George. So now it's my shop update section, and I have rather a lot of yarn to show you. First of all, I have 8 new opal colourways, and then I've got 4 new sock sets that I've hand dyed and 4 new mini sets as well. So I'm going to go through them as efficiently as possible. So first we have this yarn that's opal, and it's colourway number 11240, and it's called a Fishing Paradise. And you can see the inspiration photo there of somebody going fishing. And it's got these gorgeous colours. I love the pinks in this. I will pop a picture up here of what the sock looks like when it's knitted up, because the picture on the side isn't very easy for you to see on camera. That one is called Fishing Paradise. This one is Oasis. Isn't that a gorgeous picture? So that's the inspiration photo, and I'll pop a picture again of what the sock will look like knitted up. Gorgeous blues and greens here, inspired by the Oasis. This is called Barefoot Trail, and isn't that a gorgeous scene of a beautiful grassy landscape? And it's got some greens and pinks in there, and all of these yarns make some really nice stripes without actually making any effort. You can just knit away. Next we have Cliff Jumping. You can see the inspiration photo here. I really like these oranges with the turquoise and blues. Really pretty. This one is Vintage Car Tour. There's a very cute little car in the inspiration photo. There's a really nice combination of orange, blue, grey and green in there. This next one really reminds me of autumn, but it's actually inspired by the Egyptian pyramids. And this one's called Desert Ride. It looks quite autumnal to me. This one is called Landmark, and that is an absolutely gorgeous photograph of the blossom there. And these colours, this is probably my favourite one, I think. The pinks and turquoises together, love it. And last but not least, we have Coastal Romance, and a beautiful inspiration photo there, and some really nice, really seaside tones of sandy colours and blues in there as well. So there we go, that is the 8 new opal colourways. Not sure if I can carry these off. Then we've got all of those. Aren't they lovely? So those will be in the shop. And like I said before, the 2 cute little macaroon needle keepers, those will be in the shop as well. You can choose whether you have pink or turquoise. They're really sweet. Then I have 4 sock sets that are going to be available in this week's shop update. That is tomorrow, the 26th of August at 7 PM GMT. We have I Will Always Love You, and this is turquoise and blues, and this is actually inspired by the lake scene in The Bodyguard, with all the different tones of blue in there, because I Will Always Love You was the theme of that movie, or the main theme of that movie anyway. So that's I Will Always Love You. These are all dyed on a merino nylon base, but they are available on all the bases I have in my shop. So this one is Everything I Do It For You, and it's a gorgeous green with yellow and blue tones under there as well, with a darker green contrast. And of course it's from the film Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, so of course it had to be all the greens. But I love the different tones that are underneath that green there. This is The Never Ending Story, and this is actually inspired by the colours on the front cover of the Never Ending Story video case. But obviously the song, The Never Ending Story, is what the yarn is called. Love these purples and blues together. Last but not least, 2 heads are better than one. And we've got a contrast turquoise there to go with it. There's turquoise and pink and an orange colour in there as well. And that's inspired by 2 heads are better than one, which is from Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. So all these yarns I designed for last year's yarn clubs. So all these 4 are from last year's yarn clubs. But I like them so much I thought I'd reintroduce them for this year. So they were from last year. But I do have some mini sets as well that I'm going to be introducing to the shop. This first set is like a tropical mix, inspired by the songs Kokomo, Livin' La Vida Loca, Summer of '69, Loco in Acapulco and Holiday. So I love the really nice bright summery tones of this set. So this set is all designed to go together as well. They're inspired by the songs The Edge of Heaven, Express Yourself, Is There Something I Should Know, Frankie and Maniac. I have a really delicate toned set here, really pale pinks and purples, and they're inspired by Everybody Wants to Rule the World, Love in the First Degree, We Belong, When the Going Gets Tough, and Bambaleo. So I thought that those worked really well together as well. And I have an autumnal set which is inspired by Jump, Waiting for a Star to Fall, California Dreamin', September and Wake Me Up When September Ends. So they're an autumnal sort of set. So those are the 4 mini sets and the 4 sock sets that I've got going in the shop for this week's shop update. I just wanted to mention that this week is the last chance for you to order any of the Jolly Jingles advent calendars or sock sets that come with a bag as well. So they will be taken off the website at the end of August. So the 1st of September they'll be off the website. So make sure that you order yours if you want to get one, and they'll be posted in October. But they're pre-orders for the Jolly Jingles kits. There are also the September yarn clubs available on the website, and I've done a set where you can have the September and October on order as well, so you can combine postage. So that's the 2 months together, or the single months of September if you want to order those. Those will be available on my website until the 4th of September, and they will be shipped on the 16th of September. So next is a little appearance from Jensen at the end of the podcast. So over to you, Jensen. So Jensen's got his new little outfit on. What do you think? They do look a bit like pyjamas, but it doesn't really matter, does it? We can wear them as pyjamas, can't we? So these are the tangerine trousers without the feet, and the elm t-shirt. So they're both from Sew Over It patterns. And I think that they'll last at least a little while longer. Well, that's good. They look a bit baggy, so that's good. And we've got an extra length of waistband on it, so I think that'll be good. You gonna give us a twirl, Jensen? We've got the matching waistband and neckband there. And Daddy's brushed his hair, so he's done a lovely job of it, haven't you, Daddy? Yeah. You were so giggly before. Are you going to say hello? Oh. Oh, right. I think we're getting wigglier. This modelling is going to take a bit more effort, I think. Oh, you want a pay rise, do you, Jensen? More milk? Thank you very much, Jensen. So thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you'd like to see more, and I shall see you in next week's podcast. Bye!